Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode of 10 for the Producers. I'm flying solo today. I've just returned from Denver, Colorado, while Chris is now out in Ealing, London. So we're here for another episode of 10 for the Producers, but this time we're going to focus on the first-person shooter, because I know while I've been out there, I've seen the community posts, a lot of people have a lot of questions, so we're going to answer nothing but FPS questions today. And again, thank you very much to all of our subscribers that make a program like this possible, make it possible for me to sit here and answer your questions. So let's dive right in without further ado. Our first question comes to us from Falcorian. Falcorian asks, will you be able to have the choice to play solo against NPCs like in Arena Commander, or is the FPS multiplayer only? The answer on that is, on first release, the FPS is going to be multiplayer only. There will be 2 game modes on 2 different maps, Team Elimination, which is 8v8, and Saddle Ball, which is 16v16. These are the targets, at least. There are very much plans, because something that is a critical part of Squadron 42 is that we have AI working for FPS combat, obviously. So as we work towards that goal for Squadron 42, we will be releasing game modes for the FPS, much like Vanduul Swarm, which are FPS versus AI that you can engage in both solo and cooperatively. So the idea is there to implement that, but it will not be in the first release. That's something we're building towards right now. So, next question comes from Jeff. Oh, that was a surprisingly simple name. Jeff asks, will we be able to land and make the transition from dogfighting to FPS in a single match before the Persistent Universe releases? Or rather, are there going to be any maps where both flying and running are about as important? The answer is yes. Before the Persistent Universe releases, we will be having maps that include both ground-based first-person shooter combat, as well as ships and traversing from one to the other to accomplish the goals of that map. One of the things we've talked about historically in the roadmap is that we're going to be doing this initial FPS release to kind of get the mechanics nailed down and kind of work a little bit in a bubble so that we test it all out, we get it working. And then from there, we're going to be releasing multi-crew ships sometime after the social module. Once we have multi-crew ships and FPS combat working, we're going to move to bring the two together in what we've always called like Arena Commander version 3.0, which is capture the Idris. So we had the idea of having a giant Idris as one of the main objectives of the map, and 2 teams of fighters that would be able to, well, fighters and multi-crew ships that would be able to fight over it, take control of it, and pilot it. So that is what we're building towards, and all of that will be before the full version of the Persistent Universe has been released. So the answer is yes. All right, so our next question comes to us from Commodore. I'm really interested in learning how much players will be able to interact with their immediate environment, as any such elements adds both depth and skill to the module. Will we see the use of controlled explosions from grenades or even fire extinguishers to help propel players and NPCs in various directions, or perhaps even launch objects at an oncoming enemy? So yeah, the answer is yes. We actually have a lot of interaction with the environment. It's one of the things that's very cool about the FPS because, again, like so much of what we do, what we're doing in this one module applies to the universe at large. It's like an R&D and test bed for what we're going to be doing in the rest of the Persistent Universe. So, for example, on Gold Horizons, which is one of the maps, it's kind of a James Cameron alien-esque feeling space station. You walk into the cafeteria, for example, and if you throw an EMP grenade in there, it detonates, and you can see as the pulse wave goes out, all the lights along will shatter, all the screens will go bzzz, and you'll end up darkening the entire room so you can sneak in there if you want to. So there's a lot of interesting ways that you can interact with the environment. You can turn on and off gravity on the gravity generators. You can open and close doors, ammo boxes. You can, geez, I'm trying to think what else. There's vaulting, mantling, you can slide into cover. So there's a lot of different ways that you as a player, both from a game-changing perspective, but also just animation and kind of immersion in the world movement, really interact with the environment. And that's only going to get more so. I mean, you talk about fire extinguishers to help propel the player, and interestingly, one of our weapons that's a bit unique is we have a force propulsion grenade, which is essentially just a concussive blast wave that's meant to propel players, and it imparts a physics push on all the players. And with the new articulated entity ragdoll system, depending on where it hits and how much force it has at that distance from the grenade, it'll impart a different level of pushback. And so while it may seem like kind of a lame grenade when you're just like, okay, I could throw a frag grenade or I could throw a force propulsion grenade, when you're in 0G, it becomes super effective, which is really fun to see. So there's that kind of dynamicism. Dynamicism? I think I might have made up a word there, but it's that kind of dynamic behavior that makes the module so interesting and so much fun, and seeing how that would play out in the persistent universe is really fun too. All right, so on to the next question comes to us from Allergic to Bullets. Will we have the option to change out equipment and armors on the release of the module? If so, what can we expect to see? So that's another good question. One of the game modes we've talked about is team elimination on the Gold Horizons map we were just discussing. We have the concept of there being two teams, the Marines and the Outlaws, aka Pirates, aka the Ne'er-do-wells. They have a selection of armor to choose from each, so there's a light, medium, and heavy armor for each team, which looks completely different and is themed and stats to their distinct behavior. We also have a variety of weapons: submachine gun, assault rifle, laser assault rifle, electric shotgun, sniper rifle, frag grenades, EMP grenades, force propulsion grenades, area denial systems, anyways, lots of things. I can't remember all of them at the top of my head. Oh, and the burst cannon, which is my personal favorite, because I shot a QA guy in the face with that, and when all the little bursty parts exploded, he crashed. It was like the ultimate kill. So yes, there is a lot of different options, and that's all just for the V0 release. So the V0 release will include all of these different weapons and armor types. What we're going to do for the V1 release is we're going to be including things like the attachment system. So I actually get to use my props. So, you know, things like this, you'd be able to put a scope on there of your choosing. We'll have a variety of different scopes. You can put your foregrip or forward assist grip on there if you want. Different kinds of barrels, silencers, all that, and that's all planned to be in the attachment system for V1. So thank you for that question. So our next question comes to us from Steve Hunter. Could you briefly describe how fatigue will work in the FPS, especially with respect to the different armor loadouts? So the concept of fatigue, much like in other games, is kind of a stamina, the health of your character, right? So depending on the size of your loadout and the size of your armor, it encumbers you. So if you are in your light armor with a limited loadout, as you run along, you will end up being able to sprint and sprint further, have better stamina. That also means that when you come to a stop and you go into aim down sights, you'll be less out of breath, so you'll have less bob and you'll be a little bit more stable. As you move up to medium and heavy, as you might imagine, as you become more encumbered, it's easier for you to become out of breath. You can see it on your visor as it steams up, and you'll see it too as you come to a rest. It'll take you longer to settle if you're more out of breath. So that's the way, I would say the broad strokes of the way that the stamina system works and how it's affected by your loadout as well as the armor that you choose. And there's lots of little nuanced things that happen in there, how you react to recoil, how your gun moves, that you will get to see and appreciate once you play the module. Our next question comes to us from Crow. With the recently announced intent to switch to a physics-based damage of projectiles system, will player clothing/armor be modeled based on the materials that make them up so that actual location of the projectile hit on the body zones matters in determining protection, penetration, etc.? Will a well-placed shot at a joint where two armor plates come together cause the player more damage? Will armor repairs be as common as ship damage repairs, same overall approach and system? Or will we just be discarding our clothing and armor if it becomes too damaged? So it's a very good question, a very detailed question, and I have a kind of somewhat detailed answer for you, so bear with me. Yes, as we move to the physics-based damage of projectiles, we will be doing that for energy weapons as well as ballistic weapons. There's a variety of factors that will factor into how much kinetic energy is actually applied at the impact point. We also have the concept on the ships, which we will apply to the characters, that it will check on the physics proxy that it hits, duck down and see what material is applied to the thing that is the proxy is for. So say, for example, on this gun, if we had a physics proxy to keep you from hitting on this rail, so your character would impact it, that is then tied to what is the material of this, which is like this yellow plastic. That yellow plastic in the material effects table would have its own set of stats that would say, I absorb this much kinetic energy before I allow things to pass through. It takes this amount to penetrate me. All of these different factors that would then further allow the bullet to pass or not pass based off of the energy of the weapon and the ability of the surface to deflect that energy. If it passes through, it would then hit whatever is next in line, or in the case of a character, likely your skin, and then apply damage as it would to your skin. So yes, that is something that's really cool that falls out of the system, is that we do all these material lookups and then can determine where exactly you've hit, or at least what material you've hit, and then allow the bullet to pass through and adjust all the physical properties of the bullet, which then in turn adjusts the damage. So it's something that comes out of the system for free, and it's also something that is super dynamic, because as we allow you to change your ammo types, so you could have a weapon that you change the barrel on and then you change the ammo for it, you'll actually feel it behave differently. If you get a different kind of armor made of a different material, you'll feel it behave differently. And because the materials are set on a per item basis, it will allow you to do things like shoot into a weak point. So all of that coming out of one system is really cool, but that's one of the things that Chris is really good about, is thinking about these things in a systemic nature, which is what lends itself to a lot of the emergent gameplay that we have in Arena Commander. So we want to bring that to the FPS as well. All right. Next question is Plastics. Plastics asks, what factors were considered when designing the FPS arenas, specifically in relation to the intended style and pace of the game? For example, games like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike often force people to specific bottlenecks, and experienced players learn to anticipate the most likely attack strategy. Or will the design of Star Marine encourage more freeform and unexpected strategies for both sides? So it's a combination of both, actually. I think choke points and focus for areas is important in map design. This is something I really wish I was back in Denver so we could talk to Rodney about, because Rodney's their lead designer and he's very conscious of map design. One of the things that's very important to him and important to us is that we don't design maps that can be used for a multitude of game modes. So like in the most recent Call of Duty, you might see, oh, it's the same map, but you can play all 10 game modes on it. And there's some very light changes to it. But we're really big on the idea of designing the entire flow of the map to support one specific game mode, because there's a lot of little nuanced things that you can change and adjust that maybe work for one game mode but don't work for another. So for example, if I think about Gold Horizons, for example, the two starting areas are opposing one another, so that's pretty standard. Okay, sure. There's about three, and then immediately 4 alternate routes that you can take to engage one another. So it keeps too much of the bottleneck from happening and too much of the focus from happening. When you get into those next rooms, there's a lot of verticality to them, so you can go up, down, left, right, and it also makes it cool for 0G, again, because there's a 0G generator in there. So there are a lot of options and a lot of open spaces, but also narrow corridors. So what's fun is that if you, for example, kit yourself out with a light marine with a light loadout, but you're super quick, you can actually run down, go around, get into the main, call it the main warehouse area on the bottom floor, and usually get up before people who are in the heavier armor have gotten out from the base. So there's a lot of different, depending on who you are and how you kit yourself out and how you like to play, and how, if you want to be stealthy, if you want to be tanky, there's different routes that are kind of more conducive to that style. And you can do whatever you want. It just is, it's interesting the way the dynamics play. It's really a lot of fun to play test. Honestly, I can't wait to release it for you guys so you guys can check it out. And you don't have to ask these questions, you just play it for yourself. Our next question comes from Agromagnet. Agromagnet asks 3 questions actually, but I'm going to answer them rapid fire, because they're all pretty good. Will there be any variety in the character models yet? Or during the first release, are we going to be the stereotypical white guy? No, you will be the stereotypical British guy, because it will include a face scan of a British guy. So there you go, that's answer number 1. Number 2 is version 1.2, where we will see all the improved animations make its way into the hangar module. Yes, upon the release of the FPS, which internally we call 1.2, that is when you will see all the improved animations make their way into the hangar module. Number 3, performance-wise, how demanding is Star Marine? Is it easier or harder to run than Arena Commander? Well, right now, harder to run, because that's not done yet. But hopefully it'll be about commensurate, but there definitely is a lot more, you're pushing a lot more polys, you're pushing a lot more particle effects, and you're a lot more geodensity on Star Marine, so it will be slightly more, more demanding on your graphics card, I think. All right, next question comes from Siberian K. It says, I'll try to make it short and pointy. What is your strategy for handling the inevitable player population explosion with the release of the FPS Alpha? Will your dynamic cloud infrastructure and team be ready for this? I'll make my answer short as well, which is we really hope so. Because one of the things we're doing is rebuilding the matchmaking system, the global instance manager, and moving to this entirely cloud solution that we've talked about in the past. that will be premiering with the FPS. So it will either go gloriously or it won't go well and we'll be on the PTU for a little while. But we'll see. I mean, that's kind of the magic of this, right? That's the art of this, is that as soon as we finish this new development, because I think we all agree that we want to improve our multiplayer stability and our matchmaking, we'll put it out there and we'll test it with you guys and we'll see how well it works. And if it works, great, great. If it doesn't, we'll improve it and we'll get it working. So that's that. Okay, our last question comes to us from Amy Otto. Do you plan on releasing weapons developed by either the Xi'an, Vandul, or Banu, or maybe some kind of a hybrid technology like we've seen in the Freelancer? So the answer to that question is yes, absolutely, in the future. So for the first release, it's all human UEE weapons. As we move forward, we'll begin introducing new weapons manufacturers. We want the manufacturers of the weapons to be as distinctive as the ships, both in their designs and their function. And so as we develop out these manufacturers and we give them a wider kit of weapons, we'll get a little more background on them, some lore on them, and we'll start incorporating things like you have with Musashi Industrial Starflight Concern, where they have elements of Xi'an technology or elements of Banu technology. So it's just a matter of working out the lore, working out the designs, both from a creative design standpoint and also a gameplay design standpoint. But once we get there, yeah, it's absolutely something we'd love to do. I mean, it's one of the fun things about MISC ships is that they have those influences, as we'll see in the Reliant coming up. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you very, very much to all of you who make this possible, both subscribers who make it possible for me to interface with you guys in this way and answer these questions, but also to the whole community who makes it possible for all of us to sit here and work on this game. It is a true blessing for all of us to be able to work on this, and we all really enjoy it a great deal, and we look forward to making this game that we all want to play together. And we can't wait till we're able to release the FPS module for everybody so that we can all play it and get everybody's feedback. So thank you again, cheers, and I'll see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for watching 10 for the Chairman. If you guys would like to see more episodes, go here. If you guys would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel and always keep up to date with all our video content, go here. And if you guys would like to watch episodes of Around the Verse, go here please. And I will see you in the verse.